Between the mid-800s to the early 800s, the Persian philosopher Abu Bakr Al-Razi made significant contributions to the philosophical and medicinal sciences. Through his work, he was able to combine both his social and medical studies. He would later have his name carved into the history books as both a social scholar and a physician. Al-Razi, a name that refers to the town of Shahr al-Ray, wasn't only a philosopher but a therapist as well. But his fame in medicine exceeded his fame in philosophy. It was even said medicine was dead until Galen revived it, divided until Al-Razi collected it, and incomplete until he completed it, Ibn Sina.
Al-Razi was born in the city of Ray, modern Ray, also the origin of his name Al-Razi, situated on the Great Silk Road that for centuries facilitated trade and cultural exchanges between East and West. It is located on the southern slopes of the Alborz range situated near Tehran, Iran.
Al-Razi would spend much of his time studying and discovering outside the Persian city. Due to the love of wisdom, Al-Razi would dedicate most of his time traveling and exploring foreign and novel lands, until he achieved his ambition and learned a lot to be able to treat patients. As a physician, Al-Razi was quite generous and charitable for his patients, treating them in a quite human manner, giving them treatment without charging them. He was a man of gentleness as well as man of practicality and innovation. He would even write a handy medical guide for those who have no physician present. His interest in medicine and philosophy is partly because they are considered disciplines with the goal of treating physical and spiritual ailments of both humans and animals. In his journey for knowledge, Al-Razi traveled to Baghdad, where he studied and practiced at the Pemerstan Hospital, and also visited the ancient Oasis of Egypt. His main work were focused on philosophy, medicine, theology, astronomy, and logic. Like many other philosophers, during that time, Al-Razi was deeply fascinated by the work of Greece. He would like to believe that the Greeks are as perspicuous as they are dedicated to the pursuit of wisdom. His philosophical framework was built upon breaking the tension between Plato and Aristotle, and driving attention toward Aristotle's own teacher, which is Plato. He would often contradict Aristotle's ideas, and would also defend the doctrines of philosophers who were against Aristotle, such as Democritus, including, interestingly, his theory that the universe was created of indivisible atoms. His knowledge and talent in medicine would allow him to become the head physician in the hospital of his native town, and later as the head of the main hospitals in Baghdad and Maro before he was 32 years old. Under the reign of Al-Mu'tadid son, Al-Razi was commissioned to build a new hospital, which should be the largest of the Abbasid Caliphate. To pick the future hospital's location, Al-Razi adopted what is nowadays known as an evidence-based approach, suggesting having fresh meat hug in various places throughout the city, and build the hospital where meat took longest time to raw.
Al-Razi wrote more than 200 books on various subjects, and many philosophers and physicians appreciate his contribution to humanity. Unfortunately, many of Al-Razi's books were lost, and most of the existing ones are found in libraries of European universities. The Princeton University Chapel in America keeps his mural and his famous book, Al-Hawi fi At-Tibb, in a luxurious hall. Al-Razi is an important figure in medical history. He wrote many great books about medicine. The most important books of Al-Razi and the most famous is the book Al-Hawi fi At-Tibb, which has been classified as a great encyclopedia of medicine, in which Al-Razi collected all the medical information known up to his time. It included summaries of Indian and Greek authors and his experiences and observations on diseases. The book was then translated from Arabic into Latin and printed for the first time in 1488, and that in northern Italy it was the largest book printed immediately after the invention of the printing press. There are numerous other important books that Al-Razi wrote, like The Spiritual Medicine, in which he stated that his goal in this book is to improve our morality, suppress our desires, and oppose bad habits. He also defends Plato's idea that the rational part of the soul only uses the brain as an instrument, and that injury to the brain impedes rational function only, in the way that the damage to a flute would make it harder for the flute player to perform. And here are some other books that I recommend and thought that they were worth mentioning, including The Secret, Secrets of Secrets, The Philosophical Approach, The Greater Book on Theism, The Metaphysics.
Al-Razi metaphysics theory was derived from the five eternals, according to which the world is produced out of an interaction between God and four other eternal principles, which are soul, matter, time, and space. In many religions, philosophies, and mythological traditions, the soul is an incarnation and essence of living being. Soul comprised of the mental abilities of a living being: reason, character, feeling, consciousness, memory, thinking, perception. Depending on the philosophical system, a soul can be either mortal or immortal. The soul must have a logical function, the exercise of which was the most divine of human action. At his defense trial, Socrates even summarized his teachings as nothing other than exhortation for his fellow Athenians to excel in matters of the sight, since all bodily goods are depending on such excellence. In classic physics and the general chemistry, matter is a substance that has a mass and takes up space by having volume.
Muhammad ibn Zakaria Al-Razi wrote 237 books, and it's said that 36 books are still available today. His most important work in the medical encyclopedia, which is called Kitab al-Hawi, it's a compilation of his readings of Greek and Roman medicine. It also describes his personal clinical observations, case studies, and treatment ways during his medical practice years. His book was considered the most noteworthy medical encyclopedia of the medieval ages. His book, Al-Hawi fi at-Tibb, contains all medical knowledge since the days of the Greeks until the year 925 AD. It remained the main medical reference in Europe for 400 years after that date. Al-Razi attracted so many students from multiple different backgrounds and interests. Also, after his death, people say that his students compiled most of his books. Through the years, his books were translated to Latin in 1275 by Faraj ibn Salim, who was a scholar working at the court of the king of Sicily. Later on, through so many languages, his medical works became well known among medieval European practitioners, and it influenced medical education in the West. In fact, some parts of his publications are still a part of the medical education curriculum in Western universities. And now moving on to his incredible medical achievements, starting with the fact that he was the first person to write about allergy and immunity. He put forward a special theory about the cause of epidemic diseases in the history of medicine, the first to conduct therapeutic experiments on animals before applying them to humans, explained in his books the mechanism of vision in the human eye, the first to separate pediatrics from general medicine. He invented the use of surgical sutures made from animal tissues, the first to use gypsum splints in the treatment of bone fractures. He is considered the first to introduce laxatives in pharmacology, the first to find differences between arterial bleeding and venous bleedings. He discovered some chemical processes related to separation and purification, the first to describe the method of extracting water from the human eye. He was the first to consider fever as a symptom and not a disease, and many more discoveries and inventions in medicine. Lastly, Abu Bakr is considered one of the most prominent Muslim doctors without a doubt. After his death, Al-Razi is considered one of the greatest Muslim physicians, philosophers, and alchemists by some authors due to his case records and histories in his books, which had a great effect on the human civilization ever since he started his medical career. Some of his medical books are studied in European universities, especially in the Netherlands, where Al-Razi books were among the main references in medical schools or universities until the 70s. He also was the head of the scholars of the Golden Age of Science, and he became the scholar of his time, and his numerous books became a reference for scientists, scholars, and doctors until this day, especially in medicine.
I've written 20,000 pages of work. Moreover, I spent 15 years of my life, night and day, writing the big collection entitled Al-Hawi. It was during this time that I lost my eyesight. My hand became paralyzed, with the result that I am now deprived of reading and writing. Nonetheless, I've never give up. Despite his worsening health condition, Al-Razi still remained committed to the pursuit of wisdom for the sake of humanity. He was a great scholar and physician who truly devoted himself to all aspects of thought until he could literally no longer give more. Along with his revolutionary work, Abu Bakr Al-Razi left us with the statement that he had already seen too much of the world to want to see more.